Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Don't Be a Dick. Change Yourself. Change Your World. By Mark B. Borg, Jr., Ph.D. Narrated by Roger Wayne. Preface. Being a dick is the self-destruct button. You walk into your shrink's office and say, "Whenever I say F you to someone, I put myself in a position to be hurt. The bad feeling I want to project onto someone else is happening to me." "In other words," replies your shrink, "whenever you say F you, you're really saying F me." We all carry around more than our fair share of unexpressed anger. Yet acting like a dick makes you the unintentional target of other people's hurt, fear, anger, and potential rage, which would otherwise be choked down. The repressed emotions that someone else carries around will have a convenient expression: blasting you. It's that person, then, who inhabits the dick role. Dickery is synonymous with righteousness, so we experience someone else's reaction to it as an attack. But really, we're being counterattacked. Anyone at any time can slip into dickery simply by believing the anger they feel toward another person is warranted, leading to their choice version of F you, which is sometimes saying exactly that. Regardless of gender, race, religion, political affiliation, or what have you, we are all similar in this way. Our bad behavior unintentionally triggers counterreactions from others, and we use their counterreactions to retroactively justify our righteously indignant, dickish attitude. This cycle of behavior causes us to misinterpret counterattacks as unprovoked attacks. In essence, we victimize ourselves through our own dickery. It's a miserable way to live. I've helped many people work through this and all that underlies it. I can help you too. The best way to protect ourselves from dicks is to not be one ourselves. Our experience of the world, beginning with our earliest interactions with our primary caretakers, influences the way we interact with other people. If we can understand those moments when the world, or rather, some person in it, provokes us to act like a dick and navigate our way through such moments with awareness, we can, as the Buddha says, learn that our troubles are our best teachers. Our troubles, especially those we invite in through dickery, can teach us how we've protected ourselves through dickish behavior, how we've invited dickish counterattacks, how to halt our defensiveness and live at peace with others, that we can positively influence others' reactions and responses to us, that this transformative process can change the world. I've amassed immense personal and professional experience that convinces me beyond measure that being a dick is a form of self-punishment. As dicks, we either isolate ourselves from personal connections or set ourselves up as roving punching bags. Trending literature is full of advice for people who need to protect themselves from dicks, especially narcissists, sociopaths, and psychopaths. My work in academia, as well as self-help and pop-psych publishing, also gives me plenty of expertise in this area. However, I've found that the best classroom, and what ultimately authorizes me to pen this book, has been my collaboration with other authors, academics, and clinicians. Business relationships are often prone to conflict. I once struggled not to blow up a much-cherished multi-year project with colleagues I cared for deeply, and still do. Since I didn't want to lose their friendship, our professional relationships, or the project itself, I told myself, don't be a dick. Writing this book served as a pause for me, an opportunity to calm down and develop constructive, thoughtful responses, as opposed to impulsive, destructive reactions to any crisis at hand. One thing I learned was that sometimes just repeating the mantra, "Don't be a dick," offers the most essential tool, a pause button. So, I invite you to use this book to avoid your own knee-jerk reactions to the muck life throws at you. Let's take this chance to not be dicks, together. The lesson of all dickery is writ large here. The fight against external dickery, that which we perceive in others, sooner or later, turns into a fight against our inner dick, the one we're tempted to be. This book's solutions are founded upon the premise mentioned earlier, that the best way to avoid meeting a dick is to not be one yourself. How do we do this? The simplest way to put it is never hurt, always help. Introduction. Saying hello. You receive an accusatory text message from an important colleague at 5:30 a.m. on a Monday morning. She's angry, the message being that you messed things up again. In this moment, you have two choices. An immediate defensive reaction can instantly unravel a patiently and thoughtfully constructed business relationship that has flourished for years. But telling her how annoyed you feel would be oh so satisfying. So, do you 1. React defensively like a dick, or 2. Hit pause, toss and turn a bit, go back to sleep, wake up, and craft a measured, non-defensive reply that accounts for your colleague's thoughts, feelings, and potentially valid points? If option 2 has not been your approach historically, this book is for you. And maybe you thought being a dick was a gendered behavior, something relegated to hormone-driven boys playing grab-ass in high school locker rooms. While not untrue, this is certainly not the whole story. I've met plenty of women who are dicks, and I'm sure you have as well. Mostly, being a dick, a douchebag, an asshole, a blowhard, is a dramatic reaction that leads us to treating people poorly. Yet, at its core, being a dick is a cover-up for our own vulnerability. We act out due to an inability to accept circumstances as they are, a resistance to living life on life's terms. What we do is scapegoat ourselves, in a sense, by attracting blame for the flawed system that raised us to be afraid of human connection. We act like dicks, which then leads to a savage, polarizing state of us versus them being everyone else. An example of this is when we blame someone else for everything that goes wrong in a relationship, as dicks do, or accept full responsibility ourselves for what in truth is a takes-two to tango situation, which makes us feel like victims and sets us up for future reactive dickery. Both tactics invite dickery to further enter and entrench itself into our relationships. In this sense, being a dick is like a defensive puffing up that masks what we really need from others and truly feel about ourselves. And absolutely anyone, under the right circumstances, can be a dick. Being a clinical psychologist and psychoanalyst is my day job, and from that realm I can assure you there is no formal diagnosis for being a dick, or for the associated constellation of symptoms that manifest as what I call dickery. Yet still, I cannot tell you how many of the problems I treat clinically and therapeutically have to do with my clients acting like dicks, being mistreated by other dicks, or some combination of the two. In fact, I found it's often a cyclical, ever-shifting dynamic whereby a person perpetrates dickery in one instant and is the victim the next. It can be tempting to attribute being a dick to circumstances such as city living. In the 20 years I've lived in New York, I've recognized times in which there was some positive benefit to acting like a dick. I felt like I righted some terrible injustice, for example. But these were always short-term gains and usually resembled reactions to my own insecurities. In this sense, being a dick amounts to a survival tactic. However, the more I've explored this behavior, the more I see it as an epidemic condition. In fact, rather than a tactic or skill, being a dick is often the biggest mistake people make, and they make it every day. Romance, finance, parenthood, and work life are all fertile grounds for dickery. It's my belief, hard-earned through the painful experiences of many clients, couples, families, communities, organizations, and my own life, that there's no quicker way to make life difficult than by being a dick. This book is for anyone who notices that their behavior tends to backfire, leaving them feeling alone and uncertain as to why their seemingly warranted behavior consistently has poor results. If you're constantly using the refrain, "It's not me, it's them," whenever something goes wrong, I'm here to tell you that it is, in fact, you. But that's good news. If these troubles are your fault, then there's something you can do to reverse the behaviors that cause them and enjoy a happy, fulfilling life. You may have bought this book for someone else, but it turns out you're the one who needs it. Forget the narcissist. It's really about you. One pervasive focus in therapeutic and lay psychology is narcissism, as a trait we should protect ourselves from at all costs. The most popular blog post on Psychology Today is almost always a list of characteristics associated with narcissists, sociopaths, psychopaths, or bullies, along with tips to guard against such persons. The downside of this advice is that persistently anticipating these types of people and rigorously protecting ourselves from their notorious behavior leads to a state of constant anxiety. This may trigger our own dickish behavior as we preemptively overprotect ourselves. What if, as an alternative, we turn the approach on its head? Using the recovery philosophy of keeping the focus on ourselves is a powerful way to do just that. In the 12-step program model, Step 4 made a fearless and searching moral inventory of ourselves, and Step 10 continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Recommend this sense of self-awareness. It's not that we need to avoid narcissists. We have to work to not add fuel to their fire, and as a result, decrease our target potential. So, to protect yourself from narcissist dicks, avoid joining their parade. As you'll learn, the secret of any relationship is to turn off your finely tuned ability to sniff out, detect, and confront others' bad behavior. That sort of social policing is also an example of bad behavior. It's also the equivalent of putting on a kick me sign, because when we confront dickery with dickery, the results are ugly. To solve the problems dicks bring on and make this a happier world, we needn't obsess about the actions of others. We can't control them. All we have to do is be satisfied with a small sliver of personal autonomy we do possess, and not be dicks to anyone for any reason whatsoever. Addressing the ultimate cover-up that is our sensitivity, the "it's not me, it's them" retort, is not only critical for dealing with dicks, but for unlearning the behaviors that cause us to act that way ourselves. It's the challenge of accepting people that pushes our buttons. But this book will show you how to stop reacting to your deep-seated hurt by being abrasive in ways that allow no chance for respite or reparation, and to be mindful of these same behaviors in others. You'll learn responses that leave room for understanding and halt the cycle of one dickish reaction leading to another ad infinitum. Underneath our defensiveness lies a fear of being hurt, rejected, and abandoned. However, when willing to work through these anxieties, we are able to, 1. Hit pause long enough to stop acting like a dick and offer a different kind of reaction to the world. 2. Understand when our underlying pain and fear about the way the world treats us is due to our own dickish behavior putting us in a position to be hurt. 3. Learn to live with the emotional risks involved in intimacy, empathy, vulnerability, and romantic attachment. 4. Consciously let go of defensive behavior and deepen connections to the people who matter most to us, joyfully balancing our focus between ourselves and others. 5. Live more comfortably in our own skin, accepting others and ourselves as is. Why recovery is the model. Like substance abuse, being a dick is a self-destructive behavior that starts out as a brief moment of relief, but then becomes a problem. I suggest using tools from the 12-step recovery model to overcome dickery, because its goal of applying these principles in all our affairs, a quote from Alcoholics Anonymous, and the tenet to cease a self-destructive behavior and replace it with social behaviors, to me, represent a blueprint to live at peace with the world. My professional acquaintance with the 12-step recovery model began in the late 1980s, when I took my adolescent psychiatric clients to AA meetings in Newport Beach, California. There, I noticed that people who recover from addiction through a 12-step program experience changes that go well beyond their target behavior, be it drug use, overeating, codependency, or something else. The result is a lifestyle transformation. Recovery from dickery requires a similar transformation, which is why I lean heavily on the basic ingredients of 12-step recovery. A capacity for honesty with oneself about one's behavior, an openness to seeing the cause and effect nature of one's behavior, a willingness to address the underlying issues that cause the behavior, an inventory of one's own behavior and its consequences, self-accountability. With the awareness that comes from being honest with ourselves and accountable for our actions, we can put down the dickery we've inadvertently used against ourselves, live at peace with the world, and feel comfortable in our own skin. How this book works. My goal is to empower you to accept yourself as you are. Together, we'll disrupt your current state of mind and show you the potential you already have to define your life. Begin by listening to Don't Be a Dick from beginning to end. Each chapter builds upon the next. Make sure you have a journal on hand to collect your insights along the way. Designed as an interactive guidebook, it includes exercises that give you a chance to dive deeper into your personal story and encourage you to engage in conversation with yourself as you understand more about your relationship to the world, move into recovery, and make tangible changes to your life. You may make entries in your journal chapter by chapter, or return to sections of interest later when you feel moved to write and respond. Of course, take notes on things that strike a chord, and identify material that resonates with you or mirrors aspects of your experience. I have no doubt you'll experience a number of aha moments, and may even enjoy some instant relief as you absorb information, recall anecdotes of people trapped in dickery, and recognize opportunities to launch your recovery. My hope is that you find valuable knowledge, tools, and support that open a door to new ways of living and loving. The program I've created will teach you to stop the inner game of shame and self-doubt, an internal violence that begets external bullying. When you stop being a dick to yourself, you'll stop treating others that way too. Buddhist philosophy suggests that when we stop the inner war, we can live at peace with ourselves and the world around us. The same teachings can be found in the 12-step adage, hurt people hurt people. Each chapter delivers the latest research, real-world stories, and most importantly, exercises that allow you to explore your own emotional experience to see how you're being a dick in your daily life, who bears the brunt of your anger, and who treated you poorly in the past. In Part 1, you'll learn exactly how you've stepped on the toes of others and why you adopted this behavior pattern in the first place. By parsing through old relationships, you'll bring up the suppressed anxieties that cause you to act like a dick, not always, but frequently enough. You also learn the difference between being right and being righteous, and how the latter is the most limiting behavior dicks carry in their arsenal. Lastly, you'll understand how the myth of cathartic relief, the once popular notion that it's important to let off steam, doesn't serve you in the short run and hinders your ability to have healthy, long-term relationships. I'll also show you ways to express conflict without being a bully. In Part 2, you'll learn how to spot a dick from afar and recognize the telltale ploys of their unique dickery. Instead of avoiding them, however, or worse, patrolling their bad behavior, you'll have the skills to deal with difficult or obnoxious people at home and in the office. You'll also see why your closest relationships are the easiest to sabotage, regardless of whether the dickish behavior is yours or theirs. In Part 3, you'll begin the work of recovery. Similar to Step 10 of the traditional 12-step model, which suggests that we continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it, I provide a self-assessment tool that allows you to keep the focus on your dickery and ultimately to change your relationship with the world. You'll learn self-acceptance, to stop being a dick to yourself, and the skills needed to pause your thoughts and actions. The fix is easy. Behaviorally, there's not that much to it. The lesson is to think before you speak, and, just don't be a dick. In Part 4, I'll explain why not being a dick may be the key to living a happy, fulfilling life. More simply than that, not being a dick is a milestone on the road to accepting life, ourselves, and each other. Go ahead and say hello. You know that person you feel slighted by? The one who doesn't say hello at work and hasn't acknowledged you in any of the 30 spin classes you've taken together? She's that person who, even though your kids are pals, never asked if you wanted to arrange a play date. It's inevitable that you'll be stuck in an elevator with that person someday. But guess what? Everything you think and feel about them is probably awfully similar to what they think and feel about you. So, go ahead and say hello. You're also bound to run into that guy you think is a dick when you're coming out of the restroom one day. It's written in the stars that he also happens to be your new love interest's close friend. And that woman whose child your kid desperately wants a playdate with? It turns out she thinks you're a dick because several months ago, you didn't say hi. And now you have to sit next to each other on a playground bench for the foreseeable future. Some part of you knows that when you smile at this person, when you make the mighty effort to be nice to him or her, you'll realize they're very kind. They always are. Say hello to that dick who just a minute ago thought the same thing about you. Part 1. Sticking it to ourselves and the world. Chapter 1. What's being a dick all about? A famous Jesuit mystic by the name of Father Anthony de Mello once promoted the brilliant and counterintuitive notion that everything is okay as is. He believed that with God in our hearts, we're in pretty good hands. It's a fluid theory that I like to apply to a peaceful relationship with the world. We're already okay. We just need to attune ourselves to recognize as much. We spend so much energy operating in ways that ensure that we don't feel okay and won't in the future. We provoke others to treat us poorly and continually feel awful. We can ponder, research, and explore the myriad reasons for dickery in others. In fact, philosophy, psychology, and sociology have hypotheses, theories, and answers galore for these questions. Religions imply that it's a sin. Psychology labels it a protective measure against anxiety caused by vulnerability. Philosophy elevates and contorts dickishness into deep questions about the nature of existence. Obviously, attaining insight into why is only part of the solution. The real remedy to dickishness is to put insight into action. That said, it's smart to have a sense of why people act like a dick in the first place. The unconscious reason is to sideline oneself from full participation in life. When we are unkind to people, they avoid us. Now, how could that be a goal, you might ask? Well, the answer is that full engagement is scary, especially when it comes to relationships. So, being a dick allows us to avoid the riskier aspects of feeling connected to people. Why is that a problem? After all, isn't it wise to avoid situations that feel scary or dangerous? Maybe. But being a dick is not a safe way to be on the sidelines. On the contrary, it feels to others like we've kicked them in the gut, so they react accordingly. The only sidelining going on is that of our emotional connection to these people, places, and things that have overwhelmed us by threatening to matter. Knowing the isolation that being a dick causes, you might consider having more conscious control over how you treat others and how they respond. Ironically, being a dick invites others to yank you off the sidelines with direct emotional engagement in the form of conflict. While dicks often misread other people's counterattacks as having been unprovoked, if you bought this book, or someone bought it for you, you probably know that you provoke people. Misinterpreting the root cause of others' aggression sets us up for a hostile relationship with the world. And to stop, your perception, attitudes, and actions will have to change. Unkind actions inspire bad attitudes, and bad attitudes fuel unkind actions. Before you know it, both can become features of your character, the essence of how you experience yourself. Let's look closer at those underlying attitudes that cause you to be a dick. Why did you get so good at being bad? Most dicks intend for their bad behavior to solve various social problems, especially those associated with being vulnerable, invested in, or close to people who might hurt them. Though not the inevitable outcome, being a dick is also common when you're chronically stewing in resentment over feeling ripped off, neglected, overlooked, diminished, or devalued. One of my now-sober alcoholics clients said, "Now that I've kicked the drink, resentment is my drug of choice." Where do those feelings come from? Simply put, anxiety. It inundates us when our sense of self contradicts with what someone has communicated about us, be it through something they said or how they've treated us. Over time, an internal security system develops, what's called the self system, which minimizes our awareness of anxiety. Relationships are the primary source of anxiety. It exists on a gradient scale, but is particularly severe in dicks, who've crafted an entire way of life to manage its chilling effects. We're built to withstand all kinds of anxiety-provoking stimuli, but the real trick is to manage anxiety itself. That means not becoming so overwhelmed we cannot function, for example, anxiety disorder, and not becoming so defended against it that we don't feel anything at all, as with depression. To pull this off, we guard against anxiety triggers. The mechanisms to block our awareness of anxiety operate along a continuum that stretches from selectively avoiding things that bother us, simply not paying attention, to thoroughly blocking all conscious evidence of an experience having occurred at all. The latter is called disassociation. What these strategies have in common is an ability to numb our awareness of anxiety, fear, and pain. And what becomes of those emotions we don't consciously feel? Well, just because we don't feel the fears doesn't mean we're not affected by them. Or to put it another way, not being aware of how we feel doesn't mean we don't feel. In fact, our behavior towards ourselves and others are generally more affected by unconscious feelings than by the ones we're thinking of. And in the long run, feelings demand expression. Whatever it is that we're pushing out of our awareness will eventually find a way through to us and those around us. So, being a dick is a psychological strategy to mitigate our experience of anxiety and stress. But as a side effect, our responses don't allow in others who might help remedy the situation. In that way, being a dick isolates us, reinforcing a disconnection from awareness of that which we truly want and need from the world: emotional support. Because being a dick begins as a reaction to a world that feels out of control, assessing our current responses to stress helps us understand the behaviors and patterns that develop around these defensive reactions. The next section presents some of the mechanisms behind your dickish behavior that relate to anxiety. You might as well blame your world. Interpersonal psychoanalysts believe we get to know ourselves through reflected appraisals of our environment, our relationships, and in particular our early encounters with primary caregivers. One's whole sense of self develops through these appraisals, so in a sense, how people treat us becomes who we are. When we take an early unresolved relationship dynamic or conflict into our current relationships, that's called enactment. You and I, in the dynamic patterns we use to communicate and interact, re-engage in behaviors, thoughts, and feelings that repeat our essential early unresolved conflict. Basically, our defenses are put into play in important relationships again and again. Our feelings then become enacted indefinitely. In new relationships and amongst strangers, we replay the unresolved conflicts and relationship dynamics that caused us to install our defenses in the first place. These enactments aren't limited to our immediate family or anyone who may have directly hurt us. When it comes to how painful and frightening experiences impact us, We tend to generalize, treating everyone in the world as if they're the source of our hurt and fear.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?